has a lot to do with the sermon. So remember it as sermon time gets closer. And so to my mom, Sandra, back there, all you kids of hers, I get to have her all the time. Y'all just have to come visit her. I've been here 16 years, and she's been mom to me all along. So she was mom in the office when I got here, and I appreciated that. So y'all come tell Mom happy birthday this afternoon, somewhere from 2 to 4. She's a very special lady to me, but more than that, she belongs to God, and that is the greatest testament that any of us can have. Grace to you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. There are 3 scenarios that you can work through at your house. You can hear your mom say, I need some help around the house today. If she says that, run. As fast as you can, as far as you can, just get away. If she says, I need some help around the house. But if you can negotiate with her and say, could you make me a chore list? Now you're getting somewhere. And if she'll make you a chore list, accept it gladly. You've got it made. Just take the chore list and get busy. Get to work. You've got it done. But if your mom ever hands you a do-nothing list, then you're in real trouble because she doesn't trust you anymore. When she says, do not feed the fish to the cat, she's serious about that. It's a do not list. And she really doesn't trust you. While I'm gone, do not use the cooktop. You can use the microwave. If you're adequate, you can use the oven, but do not use the stovetop under any situation. Now, you know good and well that the moment your mom says, do not use the stovetop, that you're going to start figuring out something you can cook on top of the stove while your mom is gone. But if she's giving you a thou shalt not list, she doesn't trust you at all. And that's what God does to Israel. God gives to Israel a thou shalt not list. He's bringing a bunch of slaves out of bondage. He's brought them out into the wilderness. He can't even trust them enough to tell them what to do, so he tells them what not to do. It's a thou shalt not do. And almost anyone can do nothing, right? Amen. That's the way almost anyone can do nothing. And God brings his children out there and says, surely my children can do nothing. Thou shalt not have other gods before me. Got it. Do nothing. Right? Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Got it. Don't do that. The only one that he says thou shalt is honor your father and mother, which is just so you can live long enough to not do all the other stuff. That's his whole purpose in the thou shalt not. Thou shalt not murder. Okay? Don't do that. I mean, he's not even a complicated God. He gives them a do not do list. Surely you can handle that. Israel has a lot of trouble with their do not do list. Just like you and I would have a lot of trouble with any do not do list. But Jesus comes on the scene. And he tells us something a little bit different. He comes with a little different message. But I want to ask you first, do you want to please God or do you want to be like God? It's not a real easy question. And I understand that it will please God if you're like him, but you understand the difference. That a lot of us don't mind making God happy. As a matter of fact, we start out saying we don't want to make God unhappy. The last thing we want is God upset. We don't want the wrath of God in any way, shape, or form, so we don't want God to be unhappy. So just give us a do not do list, and we cannot do that. We'll be all right, right? That's our thinking. Just tell me what not to do. But then what if God starts giving us a to-do list? We'll accept our chore list. That's okay. Come to church on Sunday, check. Take the Lord's Supper on Sunday, check. Sing the right songs the right way, check. We did it right? Let Kristen make announcements. We can check that one. That's okay. No, he says, but what happens if God shows up and says, I need a little help around the world today. I need a little help. We should run, but we're not going to. We're going to try to learn what Jesus is talking about and stay right with him. Because that's what he wants us to do. He wants us to shift from trying to please God till we learn to become like God. If you'll hang out with your mom around the house all day when she says, I need a little help around the house, she'll let you sit on the counter while she fixes lunch. She'll do that because you're just hanging around the house with mom. And while you're hanging around the house with mom, you're learning how to do some things. But what she really wants you to do is to be participatory, to be sharing in what's going on, to not have to be told what to do, but to just see Dad out. He gets on the mower and you go fire up the weed eater. You want to make your dad smile? When he gets on the mower, you fire up the weed eater. He'll smile big time. Big time. He'll even mow a few rounds and then say, hey, if you'd like to mow, I'll weed eat a while. I mean, he'll let you do the big jobs. And that's what God does for us. And that's really what's going on in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew chapter 5, verse 21 to 48. Here's what the text says. You have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not commit murder. Whoever commits murder shall be liable to the court. Don't do murder. Got it? Most of you don't have much trouble with that. Haven't killed anyone this morning. Don't plan on killing anyone the rest of the day. Don't do murder. The simple is, don't do this. But then he starts meddling. How you doing with your anger? I haven't killed anyone, but I say to you, everyone who is angry with his brother shall be guilty before the court, and whoever says to his brother, you good for nothing, shall be guilty before the Supreme Court, and whoever says, you fool, shall be guilty enough to go into the fiery hell. Let me tell you about your life. I want you to understand that murder is the end of anger. That's where murder comes from. Charlie Kirk is killed because of murder, but it is out of anger because someone said words, you fool. And they really didn't say that. It was worse than that. If I used, according to Randy Harris, and he knows more language than I do out at ACU, but if I used what Jesus said there when he says, you fool, you wouldn't let me preach here next week. It is a word that is graphic. And Jesus lays on them, if you use that rhetoric, that language that escalates and causes the bitterness and the anger to come, you're going to end up at murder. I know where it's going. And that's where the guilt lies, in not hearing the heart of God, not hearing what God is about. And Jesus says, I want you to understand, y'all heard not to murder one another. Let me talk to you a little bit about that. He's not adding new rules for the Church of Christ to try to live by. Get that out of your head. He is adding what God was talking about when he says, what it really means to not murder is to not be angry with someone and not call them names and not escalate conflict so that all the wars can calm down. As long as we keep meeting at the UN and calling each other's names, the wars are not going to go anywhere. They're not going to get any better. It's not going to resolve in any way, shape, or form. We're going to have to learn to do what Jesus says, and that is honor life. God made people. Let's let them live. Let's honor that life. He goes on with these words. Therefore, if you're presenting your offering at the altar, and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your offering there before the Lord, before the altar. Go. First be reconciled to your brother, and then come and present your offering. Make friends quickly with your opponent at law while you're on the way to, so that your opponent may not hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the officer, and you be thrown into prison. Truly, I say to you, you will not come out of there until you have paid up the last cent. None of us want justice. It's the last thing any of us really want. We keep saying we want justice. You don't want justice. You don't want what's fair. You want grace. And you want what God gives. And you want the attitude of God that says, wait a minute, not only will I not kill anyone, I won't be angry. I'll let the emotions of God control me. And not only will I not be angry and be controlled by that anger, I won't even call people names. And I won't even seek all of the justice that I could have. And I'll give up my rights and privileges for the good of the system. Verse 27. You've heard that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, everyone who looks at a woman with lust for her has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye makes you stumble, tear it out, throw it from you. It's better for you to lose a part of your body than for your body to be thrown into hell. If your right hand makes you stumble, cut it off, throw it from you. It's better for you to lose one of the parts of your body than for your whole body to go into hell. Oh, adultery. Adultery is just the end of lust. And you need to have some understanding. And all of y'all need to have some understanding. God made sex, and he made sex really good. And he says, after he creates everything, it is good. And if you read Song of Solomon, you'll find out that he made sex really, really good. Don't read it till you're 18. Yeah, they're all got their phones out now. No, he really says, there's something, a gift I'm giving to people. I want you to have it. I long for you to have it. But as soon as God gives us a good gift, Satan says, let's twist that. Let's turn it. And I just want you to let lust get into it. And lust changes everything about it. And lust, instead of hungering and thirsting for your mate, makes your mate feel inadequate. And lust says, David looks over the wall and sees Bathsheba. How do all his other wives feel? What happens in that moment? When hormones take over and lust begins to fire and it's no longer the rational, the woman I love. He doesn't know her name. Those pictures you look at, make sure that you know God knows her name. God knows her mom and dad. God knows where she grew up. And lust becomes just that objectifying that is the most selfish of all things. And adultery becomes that which is, I want what I want, and I'm going to have it. And I don't even have to know her name. He says, no, that destroys the covenant that I gave you. I want you to know the heart. When God says, I have a few things that we need to do in the world, one of them is to show what Christian sexuality looks like in the midst of a godless world. Because once we get to that point, then we move to the next point. If adultery can destroy, then divorce comes next. It was said, whoever sends his wife away, verse 31, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except for the reason of unchastity, makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Now be sure and hear me here. There's a reason that Jesus talks about adultery and divorce. You remember what that reason is? There's a reason he puts them in this list. Number one, he cares about them, and he cares about what happens to you. But his cousin is in jail because he preached about adultery and divorce. And all of these things started after John had been taken into custody. And he had told King Herod, it's not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. It was about adultery and divorce. And Jesus makes sure that in his preaching, he gets King Herod's ear and he lays the same thing on him. All y'all think you have to do is just give a certificate of divorce and send her away and everything will be okay. And he's telling the king that is ruling and reigning, it ain't right. You can't be this way. You can't live like this. This isn't God's design. He didn't want families torn apart. Oh, if you haven't read Herod's Family Tear Apart, there's a good 6 or 8 month study. Oh, Herod's tearing every family in the world apart and killing ex-wives and killing his own children. And I mean, Herod's got a mess. Jesus is trying to get us to understand. I want you to know that God provides good things. Don't commit adultery. It tears families apart. But it's the lust that really leads there. Adultery is the end of lust. And divorce is the end of covenant breaking. Had you thought of that? Because isn't it interesting? That's the next thing on the list. Look what he says in verse 33. You have heard that the ancients were told, you shall not make false vows, but shall fulfill your vow to the Lord. But I say to you, make no oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is the footstool of his feet, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Nor shall you make an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black, but let your statement be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything beyond that is of evil. That sounds like the most benign one in the list. It's the most important. You guys, well, let me point. You guys need to know that it's the most important. If God can't trust what we say, if there's no truth in our being, no truth in our message, no integrity in our core, then nothing can function. When you stand at a wedding and say, I do, you made a covenant. You said you would. And when you send away, you violate covenant. And when you commit adultery, you violate promises. Commit adultery. That theme that goes. Now, before I go any further, I want to be sure to have you understand one thing. It was David's great-grandfather that lied and murdered and committed adultery. King David. And he understands the family lineage and the family heritage. And he came to answer sin. So if adultery, divorce, and lying is sin, and it is, don't forget that's what Jesus came to deal with. He came to deal with messes. He understands who we are. He isn't making a list that says, I've blown it, I have no hope. No, he's making a list that says, let me tell you about my granddad, and saying, but God has another way. God has a way we are supposed to live. If we'll follow the words of Jesus, if we'll live the heart of the message of the Sermon on the Mount, if we'll seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and that's what's driving us, we can have such a wonderful life. But when we skip those and we mess those up, and we are violated, and our spouse violates us, and there's lots of ways that you can violate your spouse. Quick illustration. If you get drunk every night, are you your husband's wife? Or vice versa, are you your wife's husband if you get drunk every night? Technically not, unless they married you when you were drunk. If you were drunk when you got married, then maybe that's true. But do you understand what I'm saying? They didn't marry you on a substance. And the moment that you've been controlled by a substance, or addicted by anger, or addicted by sex, you stop being the one that stood up and promised with them. And you're not the person that they married. You have now given control of your vessel over to a substance. Don't do that. They have a right to say, I didn't marry you on beer. I married you. And I didn't marry you inebriated where you're not thinking and where you think what you think is true and it's not even true. Where you can't even process information. I didn't marry that guy. Or I didn't marry that woman. I married someone else. Think about the depth of the relationship that you have and honor that depth. Well, he goes in verse 38, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist an evil person, but whoever slaps you on your right cheek, turn the other to him also. If anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, let him have your coat also. Whoever forces you to go 1 mile, go with him 2. Give to him who asks of you, and do not turn away from him who wants to borrow from you. This is the escalation of culture and society. An eye for an eye was a limiting lesson, right? You get to court, you don't want justice, you want vengeance. Look, they broke my tooth. I want to knock all their teeth out. Sorry, you can't do that. Just this little one right here. Yep, you get you a chisel out. You can have that one. An eye for and a tooth for a tooth. And we never want a tooth for a tooth. And that's really not a bad way for a culture and a society to live. It works. But it's not God's way. It's maybe okay civilly, but it's not okay for his children. In the larger world, a murder for a murder, I believe, is true. If you kill someone, you probably ought to have your life taken. I have no problem with that. We need to honor who God is and what God is about. But if you hurt Marlene, well, I'm going to have trouble with you. And I'm not going to want to just hurt your wife. I'm going to want to hurt your whole family, right? I didn't know how to take Charlie Kirk's wife standing up and saying, I forgive him at the funeral. I don't know if God demanded that. I didn't know exactly how I felt about it. The more I think about it, the more I think she said the right thing. And I'm praying that she's able to do that. I'm not sure I'd be there. But when you think about scenes and situations, Jesus is saying, as long as we try to one-up each other on who's got the most balance, we'll never figure out who owns Gaza. And we'll never know what Ukraine and Russia are able to do. And we'll always be afraid of what is about to happen in the Far East. We'll never be at peace. We're going to have to learn to trust and accept some different things, especially for you and me. Because the beginning of war is not justice, but escalation. If you hit me, I want to knock you out. That's just how it is. And Jesus says that's not how it ought to be. Then he gives us some powerful words. Verse 43. You have heard that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons and daughters of your Father who is in heaven. I don't want you to please me. I want you to be like me. I don't want to give you a chore list, a do not do list. Do not go out and kill anyone today. Do not do that. That ought to be pretty obvious, right? Don't even go out and be angry with anyone. That's not going to advance anything. If you get angry, you might cut them off and accidentally kill them, right? Don't be angry with anyone today. No, pray for your enemies and love those who persecute you, so you can be like God in heaven. When God says, I have some things for us to do around the world, that's what he means. I want you to let your light so shine that people can see me and you, and they can see what I'm doing in the world. I'm loving unjust people. I'm forgiving people that don't deserve it, just like me, just like you. That's what God is doing. And you're going to find a whole lot of people today that don't deserve forgiveness. Forgive them anyway. That don't deserve loving. Love them anyway. They may not even know how they harmed you. They may not know the awful thing that you feel. Forgive them anyway. Let it go. Build that relationship. Have that reconciliation, so you may be sons and daughters of your Father who is in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good. He sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. An awesome thought. I lived in farming country a long time, and there were lots of fields that I wished it wouldn't rain on. But it rained on them anyway, right? It seemed like those that had got more and those that didn't have didn't get. And I knew the hearts of all those people, and I said, God, can't you be a little bit specific in where it rains? He says, no, it's going to rain on the just and the unjust. If you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Do not even the tax collectors do the same? Not just the Gentiles, the tax collectors. Don't the unloyal radicals do that? If you greet only your brothers, what more are you doing than others? Do not even the Gentiles do the same? Just greet your brothers. I mean, even the Gentiles do that. Strangers in the world look for people that look like them and sound like them and act like them, and they love them because they look like them. And Jesus says, let's find the ones that don't look like us, and let's love them and see what happens. And let's love those that need us and see what happens. And let's love the disenfranchised. Let's love our enemies and see what happens. And then he says, the kicker, therefore you are to be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. That's your take home, isn't it? This whole thing is we don't really believe that we can even be good, let alone perfect. We don't mind God giving us a list as long as it's a do not list. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. He's just telling you, don't do that stuff. He gives another little list, says, instead, get a job so you can share. Instead, love your enemy. Instead of self-gratification, think about that God loves that person and longs for their good. Don't destroy. Jesus' righteousness allows you to really be like your Father who is in heaven. You have to live with the one question. Do you want to be like God or not? Most people don't really want to be like God. They don't mind going to church and they don't mind being a disciple, but they don't really want to be like God. They don't mind following, even saying, I'll walk in the light, but they don't want to become the light so that evil is exposed around them. They don't want to let their light shine. They don't want to own their adultery and let Jesus handle it. They want to hide it and pretend like God doesn't know about it. And God knows all those things. So do you want to be like God? He'll help you. I don't want you to just please God. I want you to long to be like Him. As together we stand and sing.